Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation, the channel that brings you your team every single day for free, guys. All you got to do is hit that sub, ring that notification bell. Well, it's over. It's closed. It's finished. The transfer window is firmly locked, shut, bolted, and that's it till January. No more incomings, no more outgoings. Rumours, I suppose, will continue, guys. There'll be rumours, obviously, over the next few days of players who would have signed, could have signed, possibly may have signed. And Michael Beale certainly had a lot of interesting things to say as regards possible players departing and arriving at his press conference today ahead of the Old Firm on Sunday. It's been a fantastic window. In a way, it's been, they've kind of done what we asked, didn't we? We all wanted that rebuild. We all wanted this squad changed. They brought in 9 new players. Look, the end of the day, you can make your own mind up on the players, who these players are, the players that have come in throughout this window, Danilo, Dessers, Lammers, Balogun, Butland, even going back to January, obviously including them as new signings in terms of Raskin and Cantwell. The signings have certainly come in. Yes, I think up until this point, take out Raskin and Cantwell, who've been fantastic. Jack Butland has been the only one of the summer transfers so far that has been very impressive. Kieran Dowell, I think, has done well as well, but he is currently injured and is apparently touch and go to play on Sunday against Celtic after that knee knock that he had. I think, the focus realistically of the press conference, if we talk about that first, was in terms of things that Michael Beale had said in the past. Now, Michael Beale is an interesting character when it comes to what he says. It seems that, he kind of flip-flops, he changes his direction, he says something one week and then the next week he can say completely opposite of it. I think at times he does talk too much. I think at times he U-turns more than a Conservative Prime Minister. He really does. Witness the comment that he made that we need to replace Ryan Kent, and then he kind of goes back on that today. He's talked about needing, defensive reinforcements, and he goes back on that today. It's certainly an interesting one, a very interesting one. So, in news conference today, he said the following. I mean, this is a direct quote from Michael Beale. Not that one. This is the wrong one. Sorry, apologies. This one I wanted. We recruited early in the window, which is true. We did. We did our business very early. The theory behind that was supposedly to get those players ready and good to go for the Champions League. It didn't turn out as we planned it, obviously. He said there might be a loan for a younger member of the squad, but unless any late phone calls, not expecting any movement. The squad is healthy. The average age has been lowered, and we are happy with the squad, which certainly caused a great deal of debate on social media, in particular Twitter or X or whatever on earth it is called these days. In terms of those moves. I mean, if you look at the signings that he's made this summer, you've got Dowell, obviously the midfielder, Sterling fullback, Butland goalkeeper, Lammers 10, Seema that on loan, Dessers, who has flattered to deceive so far, Balogun, Danilo Pereira, and Jose Cifuentes. So, 9 new signings, 11 new signings in all if you include the January signings. So it certainly is, been a very busy time. And look, I 100% get it is going to take time for these players to bed in, time for this squad to work. But it's kind of like, how much time do they need? How much time do they need to get ready and be good to go? They really don't have it in Scotland. You don't have masses and masses of time when it comes to getting ready to play in this league. You cannot afford to slip behind. You cannot afford to lose out. It just is not possible to do that. Look, the thing is, you look at it and you look at the players that we've brought in, there's some good players there. I think there's good players that given time will come good. I think certainly Danilo, I think in time will come good. Dowell, I think we'll look even more of an important player. Sterling could be a long-term replacement for James Tavernier. There's, the players we've brought in, Jose Cifuentes, once he gets used to Scottish football, I think will be a very useful acquisition indeed. So, look, at the end of the day, signings are decent. I think he's going to take time. It was interesting that he was asked about a number of questions. For example, he was asked about the centre-back. He was asked about the defensive reinforcements. And he talked a little bit about how they'd got a long way down the road with one particular left-sided centre-back. However, in his words, that had kind of fallen through because an EPL team had been able to pay more money for him. Certainly something that more than they thought the player was worth. So he wasn't able to actually end that deal. That probably was Austin Trusty, who went from Arsenal to Sheffield United. He was also asked about the fact that he had not replaced Ryan Kent, despite the fact that Michael Beale had in the past said that he did want to replace Ryan Kent. Michael Beale said, I think we have seen a big step up from Matondo, and the return from injury of Tom Lawrence gives me a lot of optimism. By the time we return from the international break, Lawrence should be ready to start games. It's an interesting one, that, the fact that he clearly sees that Matondo's step up, and the fact Matondo does play to that left side, it kind of shows that he feels that he is the replacement for Kent. Ravan Matondo has certainly made big steps forward this season. However, is he really ready to start? Is he really ready to be that difference maker on the wing and give us the width we need? I think he's more an impact player, if you ask me. He's looked better when coming off the bench than he has when starting. So he looks better when teams tire. So, look, it's a kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? But realistically, I think he's kind of got to say that, because maybe we couldn't get anyone across the line. He's kind of got to speak up and talk up the players that we've got. He's got to make them feel as positive as possible about the future. Tom Lawrence, I don't really see as a wide man. He's more an attacking midfielder or a centre midfielder. Don't really see him as a wide man. I think he can play wide if you need him to, but at the end of the day, he's not really an out-and-out winger. Abdallah Sima is a possibility to play there, but again, he's flattered to deceive so far. I think he's another one that perhaps needs time to adapt, and also time to get his confidence back after his confidence has taken a big hit since his days at Slavia Prague. He was asked about obviously the team for the weekend, and rather interestingly, Borna Barisic will be fine for the weekend after a scan. Now, Borna Barisic went down injured during that game against PSV Eindhoven during the week, and it looked like that was it. He would be out for a reasonable amount of time with a possible hamstring or calf injury. It looked like the end of it was at the end of the world with him, really did. But it seems strange that he has again recovered. This is not the first time that Borna has got injured when we have been getting beaten and then suddenly made a miraculous recovery before the next game. Certainly an interesting one to discuss there. Michael Beale was also questioned, obviously, about getting the squad ready for this weekend. He spoke about how they were very disappointed, and the fact that that they all wanted the Champions League. They wanted to test themselves against the very best, and they kind of let themselves down, in the way they performed during the week. And you've got to admit, that's right. We did really let ourselves down during the week. For me, coming out of the Beale press conference, I think, the most worrying thing was the fact that he seems to be happy with his squad, that he's happy with the defence. Now, look, the defence for me has been poor, very poor. Yes, I know we've got 2 clean sheets in the last 2 domestic games, but you look at who we've played in Livy and in Ross County, not the strongest teams in the league. And I certainly think, against better teams, we are going to struggle, as we saw against PSV, for example, and to a lesser degree against Servette. You look at the defenders we've currently got on the books at Rangers. James Tavernier, who is very good at going forward, scores a lot of goals, good at set pieces, but, defensively has looked a little bit lost at times this season. And I've had pelters for criticising Tav, and I've even been accused of not being a Rangers fan because I've criticised Tav and criticised Dessers as well this week. Ridvan, who is, very injury prone. Suter, who's done very well this season. Connor Goldson, who has his moments, had a pretty disastrous game during the week, but I think a lot of players did. Sterling, who again is a young player developing. Ben Davis, who many don't rate, a left-sided centre-back who now is staying at the club, and we'll touch on Ben Davis and his situation in a moment. Leon Balogun, Borna Barisic, Leon King. Now, Leon King was announced will be leaving the club on loan. However, it has emerged today that Leon King is staying at Rangers and is in fact going nowhere. So Leon King will not be departing, and Adam Devine, who is the fullback, who has had a very limited amount of opportunities. So is that team really good enough? Leon King has announced that he will stay. Is that an interesting one? Is King going to get any game time? Is he going to be used at all in this squad? That's a very interesting one. And why didn't he want to leave on loan? Certainly a very interesting question to be asked, I think, of Leon. Now, in terms of Ben Davis, now, a lot of Rangers fans wanted to see Ben Davis depart. A lot of Rangers fans don't rate Davis. They don't think that he is up to the job. Yes, he is quite good with distribution, and yes, he is reasonably good at bringing the ball out. But in terms of the rough and tough tumble side of the game, his physicality, his heading ability, he has been found very sadly lacking in the Scottish Premiership. And as you know, I don't think is a top quality defender. Now, Michael Beale spoke of Davis as being a good option for Rangers and spoke about the fact that, now he's back and fit, that he's back in consideration. So it seems that Michael Beale has zero issues with Ben Davis. Now, the fourth official claim that Davis had been told that he could leave the club, it appears. Is that correct from what Beale is now saying? I don't know. Now, evidently, Stoke did come in with a loan offer for him, but that loan offer was not of a high enough amount for Rangers to move him on in terms of the percentage of wages that Stoke were willing to take on. Rangers were looking for a much higher percentage in order to facilitate them going for someone like possibly Harry Souttar. So that's probably why the Harry Souttar move did not go through, because we could not ship out Ben Davis before the transfer window closed. Now, I think obviously, the situation with Ben Davis is quite clear. The guy's on a really good wage at Rangers. He doesn't want to move on, which you can't blame him if he's getting paid an awful lot of money. Look, does he have a future at the club? We're probably going to have to use him at some point now. The situation is such that we've got Balogun, we've got Coles, we've got Souttar. We need players we can rotate in and out of that, with the chance, as Michael Beale said today, that we'll be playing 3 games a week until Christmas, with obviously the Thursday, Sunday returning with Rangers qualification for the Europa League. And we'll touch on that shortly. But look, Davis, I think, is going to have to play a part, whether we like it or whether we don't like it, because of the fact that we are, like I said, lacking in terms of depth, quality depth, or any sort of depth behind Goldson and Souttar. So Balogun, I think, will be the first choice, but Davis is going to have to come into the reckoning, I think, given where we are at. But it is rather worrying that Michael Beale thinks that this defensive group is good enough for the club. I mean, you certainly look at that back four of Tav, Goldson, Souttar, and Borna. You take out Souttar, that is 3 of the back four, the 155. They're getting older now, they're aging. Realistically, can they go through another season and the full-on season? Can they be expected to play 3 games a week? I don't think so. For me, it's worrying that we think that this defence is good enough. It certainly has not looked it at all this season. It has looked very, very poor indeed. Now, obviously, we're all building up towards Sunday's old firm clash at Ibrox between Rangers and that lot from across the city. It will be an intense, titanic struggle at Ibrox on Sunday. And a lot of people are saying, I think, something that is very true going into that game on Sunday. Only a win is good enough for Rangers. A draw even will not be acceptable. If we can win this game on Sunday, we will go into the international break top of the league and probably feeling very positive about ourselves and able to, I think, forget about that PSV Eindhoven game. Michael Beale spoke very eloquently today in his press conference about the fact that the domestic game, the 2 cup competitions and the league are the focus, are the priority. And whilst Europe is a nice distraction, it is an added extra. It is, after all, the focus this season does very much seem to be, from what Beale is saying, on winning the league and at least one of those cup competitions. After all, that is what we've got to do. If we are really going to put Celtic back in their places, put them back where they belong in the number 2 slot in Scotland, then we need to be dominating domestically. And that is right to have that focus on the league by Michael Beale and by the rest of the team. Now, Chris Boyd has been speaking, obviously, ahead of the Old Firm game on Sunday. And Chris Boyd said, Michael Beale has yet to win a match which matters. He must beat Celtic or the knives will be out. Boyd is in effect right. You look at last season against that lot from across the city. There was a draw at New Year's. There was the defeat in the Viaplay, defeat in the semi-final, defeat at Parkhead. When games were on the line, when the league theoretically was still on the line, win those 2 Old Firm games, you cut that lead by 6 points. Win one of those 2 cup games, you win a cup probably. You would do in the Viaplay, but Michael Beale hasn't actually won a game that has anything riding on it. Now, I know that you cannot say that the last game that we won doesn't matter, because every Old Firm match matters. There is no such thing as an Old Firm match that does not matter. You've only got to look at the passion of the fans and the hatred between the 2 clubs to see that. But when something has actually genuinely been riding on it, like the league title, like the Viaplay Cup final, like the Scottish Cup title, at the end of the day, he has not done it yet, and he needs to win on Sunday. If Beale does not deliver 3 points and a victory, and a good victory on Sunday, he will be under an awful lot of pressure. especially after that 5-1 debacle in Eindhoven on Wednesday night. And Chris Boyd is 100% accurate with what he says. You know, for me, it is about getting team selection right from minute one. It is about attacking them and going for them from minute one. Their defense does not look clever. Their confidence is not great. If we can get into them, if we can get an early goal, I could well see them capitulating. I genuinely don't think that Brendan Rodgers has got all the players on his side yet. Yes, they have invested quite heavily, like us. They have brought in a number of players today. Nat Phillips from Liverpool, for example, Bernardo, and some other guys as well, whose names I don't want to remember. You know, they certainly have spent some money on brought in some players now in an effort to get back on track with their season after two very disappointing results for them, losing at Kilmarnock in the Cup and that draw against St Johnstone at Celtic Park. So, look, it's going to be a titanic battle. It will be intense. And, you know, the great level of it is the Old Firm. It kind of takes away form. It kind of takes away, you know, the expectations. And as I said on the video the other day, I don't think there's ever been an Old Firm where both managers are under such terrific pressure as both are going into Sunday's game. It is certainly a must-win for both, and I certainly think a draw will not be good enough for either team. And hopefully the way that they play on Sunday will reflect that and we'll have two teams going for each other and have a good game of football. And also probably a bit of, you know, bit of that on the edge. Kemar Roofe, for me, has to start. Best goal scorer in the game. Michael Beale touched on it today, how the goal that he scored on Saturday against Ross County was a goal that probably only he could score in this team. He also spoke about the surprise many people may have found about Kemar Roofe actually starting. But for me, Kemar Roofe has to start. Do I think he can play 90 minutes? Probably not. Could he give us 60, 65 minutes? Yes, I do think he can. Let's face it, that's where Michael Beale always makes his changes anyway. So, look, at the end of the day, for me, Roofe has to play on Sunday. If he doesn't start, serious questions need to be asked, especially if the result does not go our way. Now, many of you may have picked up the video earlier where I talked about the draw for the UEFA Europa League. Look, I'll be honest with you. I've been deflated since Wednesday. I felt very much like I've been kicked in the gut since that performance on Wednesday. It really did get to me. And I kind of had a very negative attitude towards the Europa League this morning. Tweeted out, can't be asked. It's massive anticlimax. And I think possibly that was wrong. I apologise for that. But at the end of the day, it was more kind of like the team, I think, like we're told about the team. And like Michael Beale said, I wanted us to be in the Champions League. I want us to be competing with the best. And yes, I probably don't think we're ready for the Champions League, but are we necessarily any better ready for the Europa League? We'll talk about that shortly. But look, at the end of the day, for me, we've handed them 30 million. You've got the prestige of playing in Europe's top tournament, a chance to test yourselves against some of the best players in Europe. And I think it therefore raises your level as well. You know, had we qualified, do I think we would have been the disaster we were the previous season? No, I don't, because if we'd beaten PSV then and not had that debacle, then we would have been looking better than where we are now, if that kind of makes any sense. I don't know, it might not. But yeah, I've been slightly deflated by what has gone on this week. Now, Rangers have been drawn in Group C, where they will play Aris Limassol of Cyprus, who won the Cypriot League and beat Slovan Bratislava in the qualifiers. They've also been drawn against AC Sparta Prague, who we have previously met in the Europa League. I think we lost in Prague and beat them at Ibrox. I mean, what was Gio's first game, I think. They're a team who helped us get into the pot one, beating Dynamo Zagreb. So we thank them for that, but obviously there'll be no thanks given over the two games. I think the biggest test in this group will come from Real Betis. Betis beat Atletico Madrid very recently. They're currently sitting mid-table in the Spanish La Liga with one win, one draw, one loss. They finished sixth last season in La Liga, which is a decent achievement. And it certainly will be a trip back to Seville, which for many may bring back some very positive memories or some very bad memories as well. If you take the penalty shootout, for example, or fond memories, or I don't know, bring back memories anyway, won't it? Betis have some very decent players. They've got Isco, for example, the former Spanish international. Abel Fakir. They've got Guardado. just Jose Perez. Some of the names I spotted earlier when I was having a quick look over their team sheet. They are a decent team, and they're managed by former Manchester City manager and Chilean manager Manuel Pellegrini, who certainly has a very good track record as a manager. So it'll be a tough game. I think, the test realistically in this group is going to come from Sparta Prague and Real Betis. They're going to be our toughest ties. Realistically, we should have enough if we played as well as we can possibly play, if we see a better gelling of the squad, a better performance by the new players. I think there is an opportunity there for us to progress. I really do. Realistically, you've got to be looking at top two. We need to get into the top two. We need to progress to the Europa League knockout phases. That, I think, is what that is where this club need to be in terms of progression, showing that progression and sending out that message that we are very much a force in Europe. Also getting those coefficient points towards the Club World Cup, which would be a real money spinner for the club as well, is very important. If you were to finish third in your group, you would drop down to the UEFA Conference League. Certainly something I do not want to do under any circumstances. Conference League is the Papa John's Trophy of Europe. I certainly think that that this is got to be the consideration this year. It is the Europa League or bust for us. We can't just keep dropping down competitions. It doesn't look good, does it, for a team like Rangers? But certainly an interesting draw. Some great away trips as well to Prague, Sevilla, and to Cyprus. It's always a good one, isn't it? Cyprus, how the Brits love going to Cyprus on holiday. So look, at the end of the day, it's a decent draw, certainly better than being drawn in Group B, which is very much the group of death with Ajax, Marseille, Brighton, and I forget who the fourth team are now. But certainly that is one of the very toughest groups. Although you have to say that Bayer Leverkusen definitely got the easiest with Karabag, Hacken, and Mulder. But a group I think we can progress from, a group that if our players are skilled players like Cantwell, Raskin, for example, Danilo, turn up and play to their full potential, it is certainly a group that we are able to progress from. And I think that's something that Rangers desperately need to do. Well, guys, I'd love to know all your thoughts on the stories we've covered in today's video, whether you picked this up this morning, this afternoon, or this evening. Thank you so much for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. Please subscribe to the channel for free and get daily Rangers content and daily Rangers news. And as always, there's something I need you to do for me. Well, two things, actually. Number one, smash the like. And number two, remember always, we are the people.